this edition of Fed Gov Today, DFAS moves customer experience to the top of its to-do list. The FedRAMP journey takes a new turn, and the fraud fighters get new tools at HUD. Welcome to Fed Gov Today in Washington, D.C. and around the world on the American Forces Network. I'm Francis Rose. A modernization effort at the Defense Finance and Accounting Service has several goals in mind. On that goal list are improving customer experience, improving accuracy, and cutting delays. Jonathan Witter is the director of DFAS. Jonathan, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. How did you set those priorities, and how are you applying the effort that you're taking in the modernization work to hit those goals and the others that you've established?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So as we looked at our customers, we're laser focused on each of our customers. We have at DFAS a plan to transform the way we're servicing our customers. We're focusing those accomplishments and those plans on several key business reorganizations. We've stood up our total force business line, which focuses on our warfighters and civilians that we pay. If you're not aware that we pay the military, we pay military retirees, we pay civilians. In fact, we pay 60% of the entire federal workforce. What we saw is that each of those services had been historically provided as stovepipes. We had individual organizations, individual technology stacks, individual workflows. So we saw an opportunity to bring all of those services that pay people together and begin to unify that service so that we can provide streamlined pay service throughout the life cycle of their relationship with the federal government. So we're transforming by setting that priority first and establishing the total force pay business line, which we completed standing up in April. The second area is the defense industrial business pay business line. And we're focused clearly on supporting the industrial base and supporting the acquisition community, ensuring that the logistics supply chain is resilient. We stood up this business line. We took all of these services that we were providing across our organization at individual sites, 9 different organizations, and consolidated them into one so that we could provide a laser unified support to our customers. And here's what I'm really glad to share with you. We stood that industrial base pay business line up in June, on June 15th. By July 16th, we saw a reduction in our total customer tickets of 25%. And the way we achieved that was because we brought together the workforce and unified them around a common set of targets. We were able to balance the workforce and align them to those needs. So if you had capacity in one area, you could quickly direct workload to that area. So we're already seeing results. The other key priorities are optimizing our technology and applying AI as an AI-first organization to improve both personal productivity and mission productivity.
I want to get into those elements in a moment, Jonathan. How much opportunity did you have to look at or even re-engineer your business processes in the process of that consolidation effort that you just described?
So we recognize this is going to be a multi-year journey. And the first step for us was bringing the organizations together, understanding what they each had. And what our team is doing right now is looking at what are those individual distinctions and where can we unify around common business practices, where can we unify across common technologies. We were able, for example, in our support to civilian pay to roll out a modern cutting-edge customer care capability that today is transforming the way we serve our customers and take care of that end customer, the civilian. So we've already started looking at that, and we've successfully rolled that out earlier this year in the beginning of April. We're looking at other capabilities and looking at where do we have redundancies that we can eliminate and unify. And we're seeing a great amount of opportunity for us.
What are the opportunities that you think you could get the most bang for the buck in a relatively short period of time, Jonathan?
So a couple. One is that we're looking at workflows. Because they were each operating in their own distinct silos, you had individual workflows. And so now we're looking at how do we develop that common workflow. We're also looking at the way we deliver capability through our web capability. So for example, we have MyPay. Anybody who's serviced by us and gets their paycheck is familiar with MyPay. But we also realize that you always have had to use that on a browser. One of the things that we realize as we serve the military is they need to be able to access that information wherever they're stationed around the world. And so we're focusing on taking that now to an app, because as we've identified, many of the military members can access an app. They have that ability. And so we want to make pay accessible to them, easy for them to access, and then communicate back to us through the app. So we're in the process right now of upgrading that capability to improve customer service. We are looking at the innovations that we've accomplished. And what's interesting is we've always had as a core part of our organization innovation. DFAS was stood up to consolidate, integrate, standardize, and innovate. So we've done a lot of great innovation, but we actually had redundant innovations. And now what we find is that as we come together within these business lines, we can look at where we have bots, where we have AI solutions, and we can begin to use them uniformly across those business lines. So one of the great values of a shared service organization is that we can solve once and replicate often. And the fact that we've moved into business lines now gives us the ability to do that even better.
Is it difficult to resist the idea that folks want to get AI tools when you have the Secretary saying we want all organizations to become AI first organizations? It sounds like you've done a good job of keeping people focused on use cases. I wonder how hard it is to maintain that.
So here's what I'll share. Within DFAS, what we've taken is an approach that first is built on a theme. Here's the key theme. We want to build customers' trust in our products and services. That's the key theme. When I talk to the workforce, I talk about building customers' trust in what we're doing. Within that context, we're focused on two areas of application for AI. First is personal productivity. We realize that there are many opportunities for every employee to do their job better. And so we see some great examples of this, where people are using AI to do their jobs better. And I'll give you several examples. One is within our IT department. One gentleman, as I was standing by his desk, was sharing with me how it took him an extensive amount of time to do coding, and using some of the capabilities within AI, he was able to take a process that would have taken 3 months and condense it down to 30 minutes. His supervisor was standing right there with me, and he said, you know, having watched coding for many years, right, he said this was some of the best coding he had seen. In addition, we can use AI to identify defects in code. And when we identify those defects and remove those defects, guess what we've done? We've built a more trustworthy solution which builds our customers' trust in our products and solutions. We use it at the personal level, for example, to review accounting and financial reports to identify defects and anomalies. We use it, for example, to support the audit. A great example is, as we look at massive amounts of data where there are data anomalies, what we first need to know is, well, let's set aside all the data that's good so that we can focus on those things that need to be addressed. So we've used AI to quickly assess what is the good data, where are the issues we need to focus, and get on it. So personal productivity. We also use it at a level for mission productivity. So for example, in our customer care centers, when people call in to speak with us, we have to identify them. We have to build that relationship of trust. We were able to use AI to look over 10 million worth of records that we would typically use to identify that caller, and reduce by 80%, the time that we were taking to do that caller identification. And so we were able to look at that use case and say, here's an enterprise use case, a mission area use case that was really critical. And we do that again in multiple ways. For example, to defend and protect those who are logging into the MyPay system to see their leave and earning statements. Naturally, there's bad actors out there who want to get in and try to take advantage of our data. So we've been able to use AI as a strong defense, and we've deterred over 4,000 attempts to divert pay. So we use it both at the personal productivity level, the mission area, and enterprise level.
We have about 30 seconds left, Jonathan. What's on the landscape, in your view, What remains to be done to get to the vision that you have for the organization?
So we are looking at modernizing our technology stacks. So they're computation engines. We're right now in the process for retirees, updating that system, taking it from an old COBOL system. We're about 99% complete with transitioning that to cloud-ready language and then developing a cloud system to be able to do that. There are some key capabilities like that we need to update the core. Then we need to also look at those other pieces and parts of our business as a whole, end to end. Like I mentioned earlier, the workflows. Obviously, a key part of that's our people. And we are intentionally training our people from top down, bottom up, so that they have the skills and abilities to deliver the very best care to our customers.
Jonathan, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
You can read more about DFAS and its modernization effort on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, the FedRAMP journey takes a new turn. Fed Gov Today continues in just a moment.
We all know what really good and great looks like for experiences, right? We're using apps, we're browsing Netflix or Amazon, whatever it is. We have these experiences that are really tailored to our specific needs and the things that each individual is striving to do. And so as we look at where AI can take that, I think it's just incredible, right?
We are really evolving into unmanned systems across all the domains, not just air, but also surface and subsurface. The ability of those systems to augment the manned systems and to do the dirty jobs that nobody really wants us to have to do with people in the loop, or to do the repetitive jobs that allow us to use our manned forces so much more effectively.
Welcome back. Discussions are underway on Capitol Hill now to reauthorize the legislation that makes FedRAMP law. Congressman James Walkinshaw is one of the members of Congress involved in those discussions. At the summit on FedRAMP in downtown D.C. recently, I asked him what he'd like to see as the program continues to evolve.
One, I'm excited about where we are with FedRAMP right now. I think 20X has been a success in automating a lot of the work and assessments and streamlining the process that cleared the backlog. So I see the reauthorization next year as an opportunity to build on that success, to hear from industry what they see as new challenges and new opportunities, ensure there's collaboration between the FedRAMP PMO, Congress, and industry. And look, every time we improve this program, the American taxpayers benefit because they get better options, better services that can drive down costs and make the federal government more secure. So it's a huge opportunity.
What would you like to see GSA do or do more of to maintain that momentum that you just described?
I want to make sure that both FedRAMP PMO and agency CIOs have the technical expertise, the staffing that they need to evaluate an evolving, cloud security landscape and get the certifications and ATOs moved through the process. I think that's a hurdle right now, but I think we can build on that with the reauthorization.
What's the delta that you see between where it is now and what you just described? People-wise, knowledge base-wise, capability-wise?
Yeah, look, we've gone through a period where federal agencies have seen significant job loss due to DOGE cuts. I have strong feelings about that and the problem with that approach. But we got to build toward the future and figure out how to recruit and retain top quality talent. So once FedRAMP issues a certification, the ATO doesn't get hung up in an agency CIO shop because they don't have the staffing to get it done.
Yeah. A lot of agencies had talked about the idea of reuse. I know we're 15 years into the idea of this.
Yep.
Is that encouraging to you that at least seems to now be the de facto way of doing business instead of a novelty as it was?
I think we've made progress in that regard. I still want to find more ways to close the gap and reduce any redundancy or duplicative work between a FedRAMP certification and an agency ATO. I still hear from businesses that They feel like they're redoing some of the work that they already completed in their FedRAMP process when they go to an agency. I want to continue working to narrow that gap.
Congressman, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Representative James Walkinshaw. You'll see more from the summit on FedRAMP, including program leaders from GSA, next week on Fed Gov Today TV. Up next, the fraud fighters get new tools at HUD. Fed Gov Today continues in a moment.
Innovation doesn't wait, and neither do we. At Maximus, we solve problems, streamlining operations, delivering solutions at speed and scale that drive measurable results. From strategy to execution, we simplify complexity, building trust through expertise and innovative technology. Every service, every time. Efficient government delivered. We don't follow innovation, we drive it. Maximus.
What we've learned since then is that enemies and adversaries get on the networks. It's not a question of if that's going to happen, but when it's going to happen. And things like zero trust and some of the other security programs that are going on, give us the information that we need to act quickly with speed and with confidence.
Welcome back to Financial Systems Modernization at the Department of Housing and Urban Development's getting a shot in the arm from AI. That modernization lets the agency see now where the money it gives out in grants goes. Herb Dennis is the acting chief financial officer at HUD. Herb, it's great to see you again. Thanks for joining me. What are you able to see now that you couldn't see before? And how's that informing the way that you do whatever you do when it comes to the grant money that goes out?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we had chatted before. We send out about $77 billion a year to grantees, and we know where the money's going to the grantees. We don't know how they're spending it. So we're using AI technology to follow the funds. And to answer your question directly, the AI is just a portion of this, and the IT is relatively simple. It's the business process change that goes along with it that makes this complicated. But we have started a program where we're going to have the grantees submit to us an invoice, a contract, anything that supports their payments, and we built an input portal to do that. They'll collect all that data. We're going to put it into a data lake for analysis. And what are we going to do with that data? We will have a vendor's name, we'll have a vendor product, and we'll have a vendor pricing. And once we have that, we can use AI technology to take that information and measure it against structured and unstructured data and open source data to determine that the owners of the vendor, for example, do not have a conflict with a grantee. We'll know the product to make sure that it complies with the grant agreement. We'll know the pricing so we can compare that to other vendors and other pricing. And the whole idea here is to focus on fraud, waste, and abuse, and they could be very different things or they could be an overlap. But it's the first time that we're doing this at HUD, and I'm really excited about it. One of the reasons I came back actually is to put this process in place. What's really exciting about it is we piloted this and with great success. And I was worried that we were going to put something in place that was going to be a burden to the grantees, and it ends up not being a burden. They pretty much have this data. So the input portal that we set up will be easy for them to drop in a PDF file. We're going to use AI technology with OCR, optical character recognition tools, to take that data, put it into a data lake. And there's relatively, I'm not going to say, this is going to sound overly simplified, it's relatively simple and cheap data technology that we can do the data analysis. So that's the technology part. Get the PDF into an input portal, we'll put it in a data lake, and we'll use data analysis tools to do all the measuring. Now, the hard part is, like I mentioned, the business process change. We have to educate the grantees, and we're going through that business process change. We're putting policies and procedures in place. We're working with each of the programs because they'll have to change how they behave and how they interact with grantees in many ways. But the compliance side of this is really fascinating. We're going to be able to do in minutes what will take someone a year to do, because we'll have instant data on how the grantee's spending. We'll measure that against the grant agreement itself, measure against, like I said, to the open source data. and we'll do compliance at a fraction of the time that we did before. So that means we'll be able to do a lot better job of understanding where the money's going and weed out the fraud, waste, or abuse instantly versus waiting 3 or 4 years. You know, you generally, if you tug at something when you know there's an issue, it's 4 or 5 years later, the money's gone, there's not a lot you can do with it. So the next question is, you know, how do you change the grantee's behavior? Well, we put into the NOFAs and the grant agreements that we are putting this process in place, and once it's in place, you must comply or we'll have the ability to shut off funds. Now, I'm not, you know, this isn't going to be a big bang rollout. We are ready to launch this. We've got all our technology in place. The goal is to have this launched on September 30th, and we'll do it program by program. We're going to do it in a structured way that makes sense. And once we start gathering data, then we can start analyzing. And again, I don't want this to be a burden for the grantees. They can submit data daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever makes sense. We can work with the grantees on that. But this is going to be very transformational to understand how dollars are spent.
How are you working through that piece of the business process change that is potentially a pretty big change for some of these folks? Well,
exactly. So what we're doing with each programs will have a different twist to it, but the fundamental is we want to get data from the grantee. So we have weekly program meetings or meetings with the programs to understand what they need to do, and then also how they're going to change their compliance exercise. They may, I'll pick a number here. They may have 10 people focused on monitoring compliance. Those 10 people, instead of doing the data analysis by checking things back and forth, they'll have that in front of them so they can instantly go into remediation. And then same with the grantees. We're going to control this out of the CFO office, meaning we'll have the data analysis, and we're putting business process procedures in place ourselves within that to understand what we're looking at. And once you get all this data, you don't want to overreact and you don't want to underreact. Mm-hmm. You want to have a process in place that you tug at stuff that's going to make sense to tug at. Mm-hmm. And we'll work with the programs, and you know that will go one of two ways. Or 3 ways actually. Once we see information, it could be fraud. We'll hand that over to our fraud group within HUD or the IG or ultimately to the DOJ. It could just be efficiency. It could be just waste that we're seeing. We could have one grantee spending $1 a foot on lumber to build a house on remediation and disaster recovery funds. Another state buying that same piece of lumber at $10. Now, both those numbers may be right, but there's inefficiency in there somewhere. So this could create an operational efficiency that we're looking at HUD as well. So,
what did you have to do from an infrastructure perspective in the CFO's office to be ready to have all this data coming in? Yeah, so the first thing we had to do was change our NOFAs and our grant agreements so to make the grantees aware that it's happening. We had to put a timeline in place for implementation, and we started this in January. It was my vision when I came in. We wanted to pilot it, so you have to go through that whole process, and there's rules in governing and piloting. And then we had to find, we're working with a software company to help us with the pilot programs. We're building the input portal from our CIO office, so that's working very well, and then working with the programs and communicating. I spent a lot of time talking about this with the appropriators to make sure they gave us the funds we needed. It's one of the few things all 4 corners agree on. Yeah. So that was good. The White House is very supportive. The HUD leadership is very supportive. And interestingly enough, the programs are very supportive. Once we rolled out what this is, what it looks like, once we had a successful pilot, their minds started energizing as to what we can do with this data. And we have so much excitement around all the stakeholders on this, you have to slow it back a little bit. But I want to come back to that idea if we have time, but I want to ask you, what did you learn from the pilot project that either directly applied to how you're scaling this, or that you learned you might have to do differently as now you're scaling it? Yeah, great question. The one thing that we learned was how non-obtrusive it was going to be to the grantees. And the grantees are actually excited about it because most grantees want to do the right thing. They don't have the infrastructure, the scale to put a system like this in. So they like the fact that we're analyzing who their vendors are and we can tell them if there's an issue there. We've actually had 2 grantees come to us and said, we want to be part of this because we know we have an issue and this will be helpful. So I was really excited about the enthusiasm from the grantee side. And then also I was impressed with how
they have this data, and one of the grantees said to us, "We're surprised you haven't asked for it before." Some have it in their own data analysis files. Some have it in their computer systems, and they're saying just log into our computer system and you can take this instantly. So I don't think this is going to be a heavy lift for the grantees, and that was really important to make sure we understood that as we went through it.
All right, we have about a minute left. Yep. How will you look at this to analyze its success and see how you can apply it to other elements, or maybe even other agencies can borrow what you've done for their grants making process?
This has applicability at the federal, state, and local level. I think once we get this up and running, and I am talking to other agencies about how we're doing this, success will be once we get data and we'll see the efficiencies and the compliance side. And this isn't being implemented free without cost, but it's also not that expensive, and I think the payback will be very quickly. And for me, success will be once we start getting data, analyzing it, and we know what we're analyzing and we know how to analyze it, and then how to go through remediation as to whether it's fraud, waste, and abuse. But I'm very optimistic this will be successful. We are going to be launching this over the next couple of months, and I'm just terribly excited about it.
Well, look forward to having you come back and get an update on it, Irv. Thanks very much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You can read more about the modernization at HUD on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today will be back in just a moment.
I feel like a lot of agencies are actually like data rich now. They identified that problem. We've collected a lot of data. We've aggregated it. We even kind of understand what it's telling us. But really where we're focused in partnering with agencies now is how to drive action from that data. So how to get it in the hands of the right people and how to make sure that there are cultural policies and governance structures in place to empower decision making at the front lines of the people who have that data so that they can improve those experiences.
The way we looked at cybersecurity previously, and we use this catchphrase a lot in Zero Trust, is the old castle and moat philosophy, is that I focus on my castle walls, but then once you're inside, you're a trusted network, you're a trusted asset. So I keep all the bad stuff out, everything that's outside is bad, everything that's inside is good. And right now, what we're looking at is shifting from that philosophy to assuming that everything inside is bad, that the bad people are already on the inside.
FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10. Pete Waterman and Ryan Hazing from the FedRAMP program at GSA will be here. I'm Francis Rose. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. If you want insights from agency and industry leaders on the latest topics in technology, management, workforce, defense, and acquisition, sign up for the FedGov Today podcast with me, Francis Rose. I release new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so you'll stay up to date on the issues that matter most to federal government leaders. Listen at fedgovtoday.com and everywhere you get your shows. Don't miss out on the conversation. Follow the podcast today.